Now, we have certainly been talking about some pretty ambitious visions within the primary sector over the past decade and going forward, stretching right out to 2040, even 2050. But sometimes we need to think that our leaders of the future are starting to be prepped for that future now, and it's how we support them going forward. Ian Proudfoot's KPMG Agri-Business Agenda was released last week, and I really enjoyed this part from Dr. Anita Sands that presented from Silicon Valley. She said, no individual executive team or board has all the answers on how to respond in our current environment. There is no playbook, and so therefore diverse thinking and a culture and environment to bring diverse voices to the table is very important. We're very lucky in the primary sector to have an organisation such as Rural Leaders who nurture our future leaders through programs like Kellogg's and our Nuffield Scholarship. And new to the seat as CEO, joining us now is Chris Parsons. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
Good. Now, just for those who aren't familiar with your background, could you just give us a little bit of the journey to today?
So I grew up in the far north of New Zealand, just south of Kaitaia, on a sheep and beef place. And then about 18 years old, I ran away to the army with a taste for adventure and chance to, hopefully protect others. And so that's taken me around the world. I've had some pretty amazing experiences, worked with some fantastic people. But now is a chance to come back to the sector. And I think at no more important time when we look at the challenges ahead in the world, if we can feed the world and protect the planet, then that's got to be good for all of us. So I'm pretty excited about the opportunities in front of us.
Certainly your military background and what we learn from a lot of other sectors of how they pull from military's ability to showcase wonderful leadership skills. What have you brought into your role with Rural Leaders from the military?
So I guess in the military we work in teams, and you mentioned the need to bring diversity and all the voices to the table. So whilst many might think of a sergeant major yelling at a body of troops as the leadership model in the military, actually that's not the case at all. It's really open, and in one of the teams that I used to serve in, we talked a lot about the Chinese Parliament. So everybody came together, they brought their voice, their expertise to the table, and we worked together to try and find the best solutions. So doing that both in small teams in the military but also at scale, I think is something that hopefully I'll be able to bring to this role. And I think, we've got a small team in Rural Leaders, but we've got a big mission. So really keen to sort of work with the whole sector and find our talent where it is.
Yeah, and let's talk about that new mission, growing world-class leaders for our country. I'm a bit nervous about the fact that we're going to be putting a lot of energy into these leaders who are going to be exported to other countries.
So I think leadership starts at home, and just like we grow world-class food in New Zealand, so we should have world-class leaders, and there's lots of examples of world-class leaders in New Zealand. I think the challenges that the world face today are felt at home as much as they are abroad. So, global is local. And if we can have world-class thinking and world-class leaders at home building flourishing regions and flourishing communities, then why not also export them to the world where they want to do that and where they can, to bring the best of New Zealand thinking, best of New Zealand projects to the world, and maybe solve some larger challenges and opportunities that are out there as well.
We certainly do have bright minds and talented people here in New Zealand, but a lot of our troubles have come from our culture about not being brave and bold and providing an environment for that. How do we change and encourage our growth into better culture-led leadership?
Yeah, I think New Zealanders are humble people, and they like their leaders to be humble. And then there's, on the flip side of that, there's the tendency to pull a tall poppy down. I think leadership has never been about the leader. It's been about responsibility, and it's been about connecting people to vision and purpose. So how do we build a culture? I think culture and environment are intertwined. In terms of what we do at Rural Leaders, if we can build some simple pathways that have multiple ways of creating success, then I think we can really activate that talent that sits in every single community around New Zealand, on farms, in orchards, on fishing boats, and in the forests of New Zealand, and we can tap that for the benefit of us all.
I love that word, activate the leadership that is sitting amongst our communities. It is a lot of just sometimes a person feeling like someone believes in them and giving them that extra push. And particularly the people that start a Kellogg's and come out the other side, absolutely different people. I mean, what you do at Rural Leaders is transformational.
Yeah, and I think, for your listeners, don't underestimate the power of just tapping someone on the shoulder and showing that belief in them. There was a guy from the far north that spoke to me when I was a young officer and said, "Mate, when are you going to come north and have a crack at the SAS?" And that was really the first time I thought someone who'd already gone through that path had enough belief in me to give it a go, and that changed my life. So, I think, as you're seeing these young people come through, you as current leaders, you as family, you as kaitiaki, have got a responsibility to see that talent and just see the thought of possibility in their minds.
Okay, how do we create a simple model with multiple pathways to success for our young generation coming through that will be our leaders in 2050?
Yeah, so we've got the Kellogg Rural Leadership Program right now, which, as you mentioned, has been around 41 years and does some really great things, transformational in people's lives. We want to add opportunities on the back of that, where people have found their passion and their potential. We want to then activate it into purpose, and we think maybe some project-based courses that are shorter in nature, but would put maybe some of the best of academic thinking, the best of industry support in behind them, galvanise them in behind a regional possibility or problem, could both enable that leader, also teams of leaders, to come together for a purpose and start to really generate some momentum in our regions. So that's kind of the area we're looking in, but we don't have a mortgage on all the good ideas, certainly. And if there is ideas out there, then we'd just love to hear from people around the country. So, hey, here's a need, here's an opportunity. And whether they spoke to me or any of the Rural Leaders team or the folks that are on the board, they're all passionate Kiwis, passionate about the sector. And so we're all ears right now.
Do you believe we've come far enough, and how much further do we have to go? And listening to diverse thinking, we had Damien O'Connor on the show earlier this week talking about the makeup of the council not being of stakeholders on purpose because he wanted lateral thinking from the outside. Do you believe that we're starting to see the benefits of having diversity of thinking?
Yes, so to me, diversity is really about thinking. It's about getting the different ideas on the table. You need a common purpose. So from a common purpose comes common endeavour. And so the trick is to do that. I guess the new strategy that was launched this week is a waypoint towards that. So, I think we should look to that higher purpose, find the value in all the diversity that we have, set aside potentially our individualistic ways, which certainly coming from a sheep and beef side, we've probably tended to have a little bit, and work together in a more collaborative sense. And probably that's the opportunity that's in front of us with the disruption that's happened in COVID, but also the other macro disruptions that are happening around global supply chains and great power politics. This is a moment in time where I think we will flourish if we collaborate, and that means bringing all voices to the table and finding a way to set egos aside and and look to that higher purpose.
So therefore, if you don't involve engage stakeholders within a vision development, how do you bring them on board to execute a vision that was handed to them without their consultation, flowing right through to behind the farm gate where a lot of behavioural change needs to happen?
Look, I wouldn't want to comment on how that was developed. I think that the Primary Sector Council have probably taken a wide range of views. The fact that they're not all stakeholders means that they have been, in a sense, representative of the industry, and they've tried to get different voices on the table. I think the mahi in front of us is that taking that waypoint and then turning it into something tangible. So if that's just a guiding star, a North Star, actually the real work is in turning strategy into execution. So even the very best strategy, if you made the perfect strategy in the whole world, it's still no good if it's not executed. And so that's the challenge to us. It's the take that they've laid down, the challenge. Do we pick it up and run with it, and we'll adapt as we go, or do we sit back and criticise? And I hope it's not the second one.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we're getting a lot more mature in the fact that there's no room or time anymore to criticise, because the boat is very sailed on a lot of things if we don't get on and get it done. Our consumers are demanding it, and they demanded it 10 years ago, so it's well overdue. Now, I just want to finish on applications open for the Nuffield scholarships. Man, there's been some impressive people. I've interviewed all of them on Sarah's Country, and I could have talked for another half an hour to every single one of them. Inspiring individuals.
Yeah, so really excited about that. We talk about export quality leaders. There's plenty of examples from the Nuffield scholarship program. So that is open right now. We close applications at the end of August. So if you know anybody or you are inclined to do that, absolutely throw your name in the hat. We'd love to hear from you. There's travel disruptions, of course. So this current year group of scholars are going to actually travel from top to toe in New Zealand and have a look at what we do at home before they go abroad, which we're hoping that they will do next year. That may well be the case for the 2021 scholars as well, but oftentimes scholars have got overseas and people have pointed them back to New Zealand and said, you have a look at what you're doing at home. So lots to learn here, and I think that'll make their international travels even richer.
Absolutely. No, fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Fresh in the seat, Chief Executive for Rural Leaders, Chris Parsons, there talking around leadership.
This is Sarah's Country.